On the morning of June 1, 2009, an Airbus A330 carrying 228 people crossed the equator over the Atlantic Ocean and vanished from radar. No distress call, no mayday. The aircraft simply stopped responding. Flight 447 departed Rio de Janeiro late on May 31st, bound for Paris Charles de Gaulle. The route was routine, flown thousands of times each year across the mid-Atlantic. The aircraft, registered FGZCP, had been delivered to Air France 4 years earlier and underwent a major overhaul just 6 weeks before departure. It had accumulated 18,870 flying hours. The jet was powered by 2 General Electric CF6 engines, capable of cruising at over 500 knots at 35,000 feet, with a range of 12,500 kilometers. It was the last A330 delivered to the airline. 3 pilots crewed the flight. Captain Marc Dubois, 58, commanded from the left seat with over 10,000 hours of experience, including 1,700 on the A330. He had joined Air France in 1988 and completed 16 rotations on the South America route since transitioning to the A330 division in 2007. First Officer David Robert, 37, served as cruise relief. He had joined the airline in 1998 and logged 6,500 hours, with 4,400 on the A330. Robert had graduated from one of France's elite aviation schools and held a management position at the airline's operations center, flying to maintain his credentials. First Officer Pierre-Cédric Bonin, 32, occupied the right seat as pilot flying. He had joined Air France in 2003 and accumulated 2,900 flight hours, with just over 800 on the A330. He had completed only 5 rotations on the South America sector since arriving in the A330 division in 2008. His wife Isabel, a physics teacher, was also on board. 9 cabin crew managed 2 service cabins. The passenger manifest included 126 men, 82 women, and 8 children. Most were French, Brazilian, or German. The passengers included business and holiday travelers. This was a flight filled with people returning home, starting vacations, attending meetings, ordinary lives in transit. The flight proceeded normally for hours. The aircraft cruised at 35,000 feet over the Atlantic, far from any ground-based radar coverage. At some point during the crossing, the crew encountered weather. Then in the early hours of June 1st, the aircraft's automated systems began transmitting maintenance messages via satellite. The messages indicated inconsistent airspeed readings. The autopilot disconnected. Minutes later, all transmissions ceased. Flight 447 did not arrive in Paris. Air France established a crisis center at Terminal 2D for relatives. The Brazilian Navy launched search operations within hours. Within 5 days, wreckage and 2 bodies were recovered from the ocean surface. The aircraft had crashed into the mid-Atlantic, killing everyone on board. The impact site lay in international waters, more than 2 miles below the surface, in one of the deepest and most remote stretches of ocean on Earth. The crash site lay beyond the reach of conventional search equipment. Without the flight recorders, investigators could only speculate. The maintenance messages suggested airspeed sensor failure, but sensor failures happen. Pilots trained for them. Modern jets carry multiple redundant systems designed to handle exactly this kind of malfunction. An A330 is not supposed to fall out of the sky because a sensor freezes. The flight recorders remained on the ocean floor for nearly 2 years. Multiple search expeditions failed to locate the wreckage field. Search vessels scanned thousands of square kilometers of seabed using sonar and submersibles. Finally, in May 2011, recovery teams located and retrieved both the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. What they revealed contradicted assumptions about automation, training, and how modern pilots respond under pressure. France's Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety released its final report on July 5, 2012. The conclusion was precise. The aircraft had encountered ice crystals at cruise altitude, likely obstructing the pitot tubes that measure airspeed. The inconsistent readings triggered an automatic disconnect of the autopilot and autothrust systems. Control laws reverted to a less protected mode. The jet transitioned from automatic to manual control in seconds. What happened next was a failure not of the machine, but of the crew. The recorders showed that First Officer Bonin, the pilot flying, pulled back on the side stick almost immediately after the autopilot disengaged. Pulling back raises the nose. Raising the nose at high altitude reduces airspeed and increases the angle of attack. If the angle becomes too steep, the wing loses lift. The aircraft stalls. Bonin held the nose up. The jet climbed, slowed, and entered an aerodynamic stall. Stall warnings activated repeatedly. The correct response is immediate and unambiguous. Push the nose down to regain speed and restore airflow over the wings. Bonin continued to hold the stick back. The aircraft fell 38,000 feet in 3.5 minutes. It remained in a stalled condition almost the entire descent. Captain Dubois had left the cockpit earlier for a scheduled rest break. He returned during the emergency but could not recover control in time. The investigation found no evidence of incapacitation, mechanical failure, or external interference. The pitot tube blockage was temporary. Airspeed indications returned partway through the event. The aircraft's systems functioned as designed. The engines were producing thrust. The control surfaces responded to inputs. The crew had altitude, power, in a flyable airplane. The stall was recoverable at any point until the final seconds. Two explanations emerged. The first centered on training gaps and human factors. Bonin had 2,900 hours of total flight time, with just over 800 on the A330. He had carried out only 5 rotations on the South America route. Critics argued that modern flight training emphasizes automation management over manual flying skills. Pilots spend thousands of hours monitoring systems, not hand-flying jets at altitude. When automation fails, some lack the instinct to respond correctly. The second explanation focused on cockpit communication. Airbus side sticks operate independently. Unlike Boeing's linked yoke system, one pilot cannot feel what the other is doing. The voice recorder showed confusion over who had control and what inputs were being made. First Officer Robert in the left seat issued conflicting instructions. By the time the situation became clear, the aircraft was too low to recover. Both explanations have merit. Both have counter-evidence. Thousands of pilots fly A330 safely every day with similar training backgrounds and experience levels. Side-stick architecture has been standard on Airbus aircraft for decades without causing widespread accidents. The report did not blame the design or the training program alone. It identified a chain. Environmental conditions triggered sensor failure. Sensor failure deactivated automation. Loss of automation exposed a gap in manual skill and situational awareness. Poor crew coordination prevented timely correction. Each link was survivable. Together, they were not. Flight 447 remains the deadliest accident in Air France's history and the deadliest involving an Airbus A330. It led to mandatory changes in pilot training worldwide, revised stall recovery procedures, and new design standards for pitot tubes. Airlines increased emphasis on manual flying skills and high-altitude stall recognition. Simulator training now includes scenarios where automation fails unexpectedly at cruise altitude. On May 21, 2026, a French court found both Airbus and Air France guilty of corporate manslaughter. Each company was fined €225,000, the maximum penalty allowed under French law. Families had sought accountability for 17 years. 228 people boarded a flight that should have been routine. The aircraft was modern, maintained, and crewed by qualified pilots flying a proven route. An ice crystal blockage, brief and recoverable, set off a sequence no single factor could have caused. The recorders captured every input, every warning, every second of the descent. What they could not capture was why, with altitude and time, in a working aircraft, the most basic recovery action was never taken. The aircraft fell because the nose stayed up. Why it stayed up, why the training did not take hold, why the crew could not break the chain in time, remains the unresolved center of the case. The unsolved vault. Every case leaves something behind.